latest episode of Casting Couch.
Okay.
Look at the camera.
PG-13.
Oh, PG.
All right. Welcome to the Hall H Show podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Nabus, and on behalf of my co-host, Alex Benedicto, thank you for joining us. We are joined today by the awesome peeps, otherwise known as Accidental Aliens. 4 of them are here today with us. We have Emily Rocha, Scott Lost, Travis Rivas, and Rodney Anderson. How you guys doing?
Good,
Awesome.
good,
man.
All
How are you?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I guess before we get into it, maybe if we can just do a quick origin story of what you guys are all about, and then we'll also go into the origin story of how you guys actually got together, how you met, the how and why of Accidental Aliens. So, Emily.
Oh, well, I met these guys at the San Diego Comic Fest. It was, I think, in year 2. San Diego Comic Fest started about 5 years ago. Or was it?
Oh, is that right? Is that
Was it
right?
year 2
Yeah.
or 3?
So, yeah.
It was,
like year 2 or 3, yeah.
It was at, it was in Hotel Circle, and it was just like a little Comic-Con started by the originators of Comic-Con. And it just got very close, very personal. We had a great little artist alley up there, and then that's where we all met. We were all tabling together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a good area because it's good and bad. For one, it's separate from a normal convention where your artist alley is on the same floor as the sales floor. So it's a really small hotel. So we're actually upstairs in a room. So it's just a room for artists. So when people were downstairs doing their panels or shopping, the artist alley would be pretty much empty, maybe 1 or 2 people in there. And then so the artists would kind of like get up and look at each other's stuff just because we're isolated and there's no one here. So we'd actually get up and talk to each other. And there was a couple of people I met the first year. They were in the group, so they've moved on at this point. But one of the guys, Arnie, he's actually still in the group, and Kristen is actually how I met Rodney. Rodney wasn't in Artist Alley at that point, and Kristen actually brought in Travis too. So I met Travis there. Travis was attending as a fan, and he ended up picking up my book. And I was like, "Oh, how was he?" He was like, "Yeah, it was cool. It was all right." And I'm like,
I think I gave you some notes. I'm like, if you look at this panel here, that's not so good. You gotta rearrange.
Yeah. Oh no, that was later on. But no, I remember very specifically because that's the first time I've ever heard someone give me, like, not to say that all feedback hasn't been honest feedback or criticism. That was the first time I received like what could have been conceived as criticism. It was fine, but I'm gonna pick up the second issue and see how it goes. And I'm like, all right. I mean, it obviously was entertaining enough for him to come back to it. But then Kristen brought Travis to one of our drawing groups. We started meeting up. That's where I met Rodney.
Yeah.
And then a few weeks later, she brought over Travis, and I was like, oh, I know him. He was at the show, and so then we started hanging out from there.
Cool. And how did you, come on board?
Well, I made the decision to try to break into comics about 4 or 5 years ago, and I just started going to shows just to network. And my very first one was Comic Fest, where I met Scott. And like you said, I picked up his book and kind of crapped on it a little bit. And then I would see Scott and I'd see Rodney and several others at other shows, whether it's WonderCon, Long Beach, and then I a couple years into me trying to break in, I came up with this idea for a character who kind of looked like me. I have a limb difference, and so I created a superhero with my same limb difference, and really kind of used the group to get some feedback. Some of them have helped me with different character designs. Some of them have helped me with story ideas, and so just kind of using the group as a way to hone that comic and that story. And then getting to do the anthology last year and this year as well is something that's been really, really great as well.
And issue 0.
Oh yeah, we did issue 0 and Scott's 6th issue for Second Shift, which I helped write parts of it. I was also able to do a 0 issue, an origin issue for that character as a backup.
So yeah, issue 6 of the Second Shift was a flip book. So one side was issue 6 of the second shift, and you flip it over, and it was issue 0.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I had.
And I
that
did
one.
the cover for that one.
Yeah.
Nice. Rodney.
So as Scott was saying, I wasn't there the fated second year of Comic Fest. How I came into the group is through our mutual friend Kristen. We were in a drawing group prior to that. I don't know, this comic book art community. It's a lot smaller than it should be here in San Diego. So you get to know everybody who's throwing down on comics, and it can be lonely. So we decided to start drawing together, and it's a nice feeling drawing in a group. It's a lot of camaraderie that we have kind of brought to the table, and it's fun. It's just way more fun than sitting at your desk by yourself and your cat.
We're a drinking group with an art problem.
That's it. That's it. I like that. So when during
You're a
that Comic
tagline.
Fest, Kristen invited these fine folks to draw, and we kind of formed up like Voltron.
Who's the left arm? Who's the right arm? Who's
I'm neither arm.
I'm not saying I'm the black line. At this point, I would probably be Scott because we made him editor. So we like.
So he forms the head.
Say it, Scott.
Yeah, a hungover head.
And I'll form the head.
And we've actually picked up more people. More people have come into the group throughout the years. Rodney's brought in a couple of people. Draw and Eric were friends of yours that drew, and he brought them in. And then over the last couple of years, Comic Fest is kind of like my talent scouting pool. So the first year, that's when I actually was hanging out. I was talking to Arnie Gordon after the show. And because he's real nice, he came up to me and he was talking to me about my art and how much he liked it. And then I went over and I saw his stuff. I really enjoyed it. And so I was like, hey, are you local? And pretty much everyone that goes to San Diego Comic Fest are local artists, which is really cool. And I was like, would you want to hang out and draw sometime? And he goes, yeah, for sure. And Kristen was next to him. She's like, can I come? And I'm like, oh, yeah, for sure. So that's kind of how we started initially. And then so every year I kind of, like see who's around. And like I had seen Emily the first year I was there, but like we didn't speak. She was on the other side of the room, and she looked busy or whatever. And but the
she always looks busy.
Yeah, she always has that look.
She fakes the funk well. Sometimes she just,
I'm working on it.
But so the next year she actually was 2 chairs over from me, and she just seemed really cool talking to her and this other guy Josh, like talking to them throughout the show or whatever. And then Emily, I was like, I get along really well with her just based off of, what was it, like 4 days? Was it a 4-day event?
It was 3 days.
3 days?
Yeah.
So based off of the 3 days, I was like, I like this chick. She seems pretty cool. I think we'd get along. And so I was like, hey, do you want to come? And then Josh was like, can I come? And I was like, yeah, okay. So, but he's fallen off at this point. He actually moved away. But every year we kind of pick up a couple new members. This past year we picked up Tristan Whitehouse, and he was actually next to Rodney. And he just seemed like a really cool guy. Him and his wife Crystal, really cool. And so we brought them in, and he's been fantastic for us. He has a background in graphic design, and he works for City Beat. So a lot of the technical aspect of creating comics, he's helped us. Between him and Emily, like we're like a well-functioning unit. Like
Nice.
It's all flowing well.
Yeah, I met him at the artist signing at SoCal, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had beers at the Society.
Yeah, that's right. All the beers.
And we recently added Dylan Gray to our
And Dylan,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Dylan, who has done some work with Top Cow before, and I think he does marketing with them.
Mm-hmm.
And-
Marketing director.
Yeah, and he works a lot of the shows with Matt Hawkins, and he saw a copy of our last anthology and just was like, oh man, this is great. I'd like to be a part of it. And we said, yeah, sure. We know you. We've seen you around. We know you're a reliable guy. Like, let's get you in there. And he's also been a great contributor to the book, and the marketing of it and getting the word out there about it. And he's been a big help in our fundraising campaign as well.
Yeah, we've been talking about stretch goals and stuff like that since the start of the Kickstarter. We've hit our goal. We still need to, keep going. We have, I think, about 21 days left. Is that right?
Yeah.
We'll talk about the Kickstarter a little bit later.
So, but we're thinking about, what can we do for stretch goals? And he's like, I got a guy. And so we're like, what about this? He's like, I got a guy. So he's got a guy for everything. So he's been a great addition.
Cool. Maybe we can sort of delve a little bit deeper into your own personal origin stories as well. I guess we'll start with Rodney. I know you're not from San Diego.
No, I'm from Texas. I'm a country boy. Sorry, I didn't, have my 10-gallon hat today. I didn't think it convey well on a podcast. But so as far as my art origin, I, as an artist, I initially wanted to just kind of stay home and not leave the nest art-wise. But my mom encouraged me to go to art school to get a degree, and she was like, if you're gonna do it, get you a full degree. So I decided to go to Savannah College of Art and Design, and I studied in there.
Is that in Georgia?
What's that?
Savannah, Georgia?
In Savannah, Georgia, yes. So they back then, it was one of the few full 4-year comic book programs. So right now, I think there are a few more, but definitely it was one of the best. A lot of my teachers were actual guys and gals that worked in the industry or were working on projects.
Nice.
That was really awesome. I most people will say like, "Oh man, that's kind of cool. You must be really good. You come out of art school." It's not that art school gives you what you need to be a better artist. It just helps you figure out how to continue learning as an artist. I especially with tuition rates the way they are now, I wouldn't say it's necessary, but the experience was really good. I came out much better than when I went in. So after that, during school, I was always wanting my own kind of project, and I'm a big fantasy guy, big fantasy guy. I came up in that era of Conan the Barbarian and Beastmaster. I'm totally putting a date on myself. And young Tom Cruise and Legend, you know what I mean? So I wanted to do a story along those lines, but I never saw anyone in those stories that looked like me. If you see any of my posts on Instagram, I always have that hashtag diversity in comics. That's really big for me. And in fantasy, you just don't see it, black characters at all or represented well. And I wanted to make a story where a black character in a fantasy, full-on sword, sorcery type of thing, was the main character. And that's my story, Sword Saga. In the first anthology, you get a little bit of the main character, Tao, and in this anthology you get another one of my characters, my female warrior Zuri. She's going to be featured in that story, and hopefully looking to drop book 1 around May, June, before San Diego Comic-Con. So
cool,
coming soon with that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Travis, can you tell us a little bit about your origin story?
Sure. Well, my background right now is in education. I work at preschool with kids who are on the autism spectrum. But I got my degree in literature and writing, and I always loved comics. I specifically remember going to the store with my dad to pick up The Death of Superman and the line going out the door and seeing people just, so affected, and that looking at that black poly bag issue with the bloody red S, and I remember being a kid going Superman can't die, that's impossible, and then reading that and just being so blown away, and the power that one issue had on me. I think I kind of knew from then on out, like, this is what I wanted to do. And as I mentioned earlier, it wasn't until about 5 years ago that I actively made the decision to pursue this as a career. And so, piggybacking off what Rodney said about diversity, I obviously have a limb difference. I also never saw people who look like me in TV or comics, or in books or movies, anything like that. And I really never, in all my writing career, I never wrote about anyone with a limb difference or any kind of diversity, because I really didn't, at that point in my life, I didn't want to really identify with that. And I remember I was at a WonderCon with who's the guy who does the Nerdist podcast? Chris Hardwick.
Yes.
He was doing a panel where someone asked him a question, and he said, hey man, how does a guy like me kind of stand out amongst the crowd? And Chris said he quoted a stand-up comic at the time. I don't remember which one. He said, the more true you are to yourself, the more you can tell your own story, the more you're going to stand out amongst the crowd, because nobody is you and nobody has your experience and nobody can tell your story. And right then and there, as soon as I heard that, I knew I needed to make characters with limb differences, characters who had physical disabilities, because we weren't seeing that. So my hero, the Unstoppable Cherub, she has the shortened forearms that I do. I have my character in Dust is missing a limb, and I have other characters on the way with other physical impairments that I really want out there to empower other people to say, yeah, I can be a hero too.
Cool.
So.
That's awesome.
Hope so.
Mr. Scott Lost here.
So we just okay.
What's your origin story?
All right, yeah, I'm trying to think. Are we
Scott
going?
Lost, issue 0.
Yeah. I've been drawing my entire life, but I think I started collecting comics. It might have been around the 4th or 5th grade. I want to say somewhere around there. One of my friends, his uncle. He's Filipino, so like it's his uncle, quote unquote uncle, it's like family friend uncle.
Yeah. Not blood related.
I don't think they're blood related, but his uncle is Willis Portasio.
Oh, okay.
Or is Willis Portasio.
Yeah.
And so he was hooking him up with comics, and he came into school and he was just like, oh, my uncle gave me all these comics. And it was just tons of random things, it was a bunch of different Marvel titles. And I was like, can I have one, And he's like, well, you can have this. And it was like, I think it was Alpha Flight 23 or something like that. It was like Wendigo versus what's the sorceress lady? White?
No,
Snowbird.
Yeah.
And then she was like it was Wendigo versus Wendigo on the cover, and I was like,
that's right.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this looks so cool. And so I was like, but it's Alpha Flight. Like, who's Alpha Flight? I don't know who Alpha Flight is. And then the infatuation began there. And later that night, I ended up going to 7-Eleven with my mom. She took me there, and they had the spinner racks back in the day.
Yeah. You're dating yourself.
Yeah, man. It was so rad. Like going into the store and like when he brought all the comic books in, I was just like, I seen those in the store. Oh, and so I picked up Excalibur number 3, and Nightcrawler's getting kicked in the butt on the cover, and I was just like, it was crazy. It was like an Alice in Wonderland story. And so it was kind of wild with Arcade. Arcade was in that, and one other book I can't remember at the moment. But so anyway, that's when the infatuation started, and it's been drawing my entire life. My dad's a painter, so I had some natural ability to draw, and from there I started creating my own comics. The Second Shift was created when I was in 7th grade, and so it's just gone through changes over the years as I have. Initially it was like a kind of like a monster hunter book. Like they were a superhero team, but they primarily fought like creatures, like like zombies, vampires, like that type of thing.
Okay.
And then a video, and it used to be called Dark Watch, and it was just like it was like
So
you know,
nice.
it was so image.
Did they have pockets and pouches?
Oh, absolutely. My main character still has pouches. So, but anyway, from there, you know, it's like it changed. Then there was a video game that came out, and it was called Dark Watch, and I think they fought zombies in it, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" You know, like, yeah. So I was like, "Okay, this has got to change." And but you know, over the years, I've done issues like that I've actually completed. I actually have, Travis alluded to Second Shift issue 0. The first time I ever completed a full comic, like start to finish, I think I was like 24. And after I finished, I was like, wow, the writing's really bad in this. Like, I realized that I'm not a writer, and at some point, if I do want to continue this, I'm going to have to find someone to write the story for me. But then I took a 10-year hiatus from 20 to 30 from drawing, and I was a professional wrestler. So I did that for 10 years. It went well enough, but it was time to move on. My body was giving out, and I started falling back in love with comics. And over, those years, I wasn't drawing, but I was still reading. And so it was, an easy transition to go back into comics.
Cool. Emily?
Well, my first 5 years of my life were actually in Japan. I was born there on a military base, and so as I was growing up, very early, I was surrounded by like Sanrio characters and anime, and I really liked it. But it wasn't, I watched very young shows like Anpanman and Doraemon, and it just like they were great, they were fun. I was little. Then we moved to California in the 90s, and we only had 3 channels in my home. It was Fox, CBS, and ABC. So I didn't get the Cartoon Network backstory that a lot of 90s kids did. But Fox Kids was my big thing, because as soon as I saw the early 90s Spider-Man and X-Men series, that just like struck me like lightning, because everything I'd seen up till then was all very cutesy, very, very Japanese, which I liked but didn't love. Like it didn't really stick with me. And so that really shaped me, was just all those early 90s Marvel pieces that just really shaped my drawing. I started working in childcare, actually. After that, I started working for a school district after school program, so I would teach kids watercolor because it was the easiest to clean up. It was the one art project that like you could just make a huge mess and just wipe down the tables, and you're like, okay, great, we're done. So I did a lot of that in my adult life, and when I actually got into the comics industry, it was just through a friend. A friend was tabling at Comic-Con, and so I would go with him, and I would kind of assist him, watch his table a little bit, and I would doodle while I was at the table. It was very, like, I just kind of got integrated. I got used to the environment. And then after we stopped working together, I was invited to, actually it was San Diego Comic Fest. We were partners at that first show at San Diego Comic Fest. And then we went separate ways after that, and they brought me back as a separate artist, and that's when I met these guys.
Nice.
So it's just been... it's been a really fun ride. I love doing ink and watercolor. Watercolor really for me is just like, it's such a raw way to do comics, and it's so like, I love using the physics of the water. I love just like the simplicity of it. I actually got into comics originally doing digital colors, which I liked, but when I started doing watercolor and integrating what I was teaching the kids into what I was doing, it just that really stuck with me. Yeah,
it's kind of appropriate for, I guess, Jessica Jones with all the watercolor art.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Have you guys watched Jessica Jones yet?
Only the first season.
I haven't seen the second one yet.
First season.
No spoilers.
Yeah. I just started Runaways last night, and that show is pretty legit.
I heard it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I heard it was pretty good.
It's good.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Cool. I guess we'll bring the conversation back to Accidental Aliens, and I've always wondered, like, how did that name come about?
We'll let Scott take this one.
Yeah. Was it you that put the alien?
I'm the one who started the alien.
Okay, so we're in a Facebook group chat, and we didn't have a name. We were calling ourselves San Diego Comic Friends because San Diego Comic Fest, it was like the same, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's funny. So
And we were something before that too.
Something else, yeah, I can't
We
even
started.
remember.
We tried Light Switch Studios.
Yeah.
But even before that, there were the paper cuts.
We were the Paper Cuts when we first started.
Oh, I wasn't paying attention to that.
No,
part.
that was when it was like me, Rodney, and Kristen.
Arnie and Kristen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but so we were San Diego Comic Friends, and we changed. So on Facebook, you have a little button, like the thumbs up button, but you can change it. You can customize it to whatever emoji you want. And so we ended up with an alien head somehow. Like someone picked an alien head. It would get changed a lot.
That was me.
And so usually if someone put something in the group that we liked, to give it a thumbs up, we would hit the alien head. And then I think we were talking about something that wasn't a great situation. Like it was oh man, this bad thing, this tragic thing happened, and Travis hit an alien head, and he goes, oh, I'm sorry, whoops, that was an accidental alien. And then that's where it started, and we were tinkering with names for a while. And like I was just like, hey, I kind of like the accidental aliens. Like I think that's really cool. It's really catchy, and
It's original. Nobody else has that name.
right.
Yeah. And there's an origin story too.
Yeah, it has
right?
a fun origin story. And then like Emily mentioned, we were Light Switch Studios for a minute, but I felt it was too. I don't know. I mean, like corporate. I don't know if that's the right word, but
was
it
kinda
felt
boring.
It was generic. It was very generic.
Yeah, it's a generic. It was actually part of a joke that Travis. Yeah, it's an inside joke too. Cause like Travis is like, hey man, I want to pitch a story to you about your characters. And so one of my characters' name is Switch, and the other one's Light Shower. And he goes, I came up with this new character. His name's Light Switch. and so like,
it was a fusion of the two characters.
yeah. And so it was kind of a joke between me and Travis, but Travis kind of liked the name. I was like, bro, we're not gonna make our group name based off of our inside joke. I was like, I don't know, that doesn't sound great. And then eventually,
Because accidental alien was so much more accessible.
yeah,
It was just you two.
yeah. And so, I just liked the way the accidental aliens sounded better, and everyone signed off good on it. And then so we decided to keep it.
Cool. I guess we can go into the actual anthology for 2018. Would you mind sort of doing a little preview of each of the stories that are in there, and maybe, I guess first off, just maybe touch on the other members of the group since they aren't here.
So we mentioned a little bit earlier. We mentioned Dylan Gray, Tristan Whitehouse. I want to make sure I don't forget anyone, so I'm going to look into our list real quick. We have Andy Dukelith. She was in the first. Draw Hard was also in the first. Emily, of course. Rodney, myself, Travis. And so the two new additions to our group for this anthology is Dylan, Tristan.
Okay, cool. All right. I guess, Emily, you want to start off with your story?
Oh yeah, my story is Atla. Actually, last year I had Travis write my story because I'm not really a writer, but I really I wanted to branch out this year and do my own. So I started this before I even heard about Shape of Water, but it's a mermaid story. It's about a young boy who is studying to be a marine biologist. He's like in a special like class for kids that are like choosing that as a career path early. And his father was involved in a discovery of like a new ocean creature, very very similar to a mermaid, but his father was lost at sea. So the story begins. It's a 6-page story where he's about to confront this creature. Like he's been avoiding it, but he has to because he wants to continue with the class and his career path. And so he finally confronts this like creature that connects.
Don't give away the end.
It's a connection to his father's loss.
Yeah, just
and
a little
then
tease.
then he discovers that there's more to it. There's more to it than just being like a new fish
Cool.
in the ocean.
All right. Mr. Lost.
I'm continuing my story from last year, Wanderers of Melisande. It takes place 1,000 years into the future. Humans have been colonizing and terraforming other planets and come across the planet of Melisande, which is completely inhabitable without having to do anything. So, but it's like on, it's somewhat of a desert planet in certain areas. Like, I don't know, it's very similar to Earth. And, some areas are more tropical. So throughout the story, as the story goes on, you'll be visiting different, parts of the world. But the one thing about this story in particular that I find interesting and what made me want to write and draw it is on this planet, the meteor never hit. So their versions of the dinosaur never went extinct. So they survived, evolved, and so they're the dominant species on the planet. And then so you have humans and another dominant species. So when you have two dominant species, how will they interact? How will that work out? And of course it doesn't.
Travis.
My story is called Dust. It's a sci-fi western where in the future climate change has taken over, and there's real no use for money anymore. So the main form of wealth is organs, healthy organs, and you can loan out your organs for more resources. And in this story, my main character Dust, his loan got defaulted on, and so his wife's heart was taken. So he goes to get it back. So that's the brief pitch for Dust.
Without
saying any more.
Rodney.
So I'm continuing stories from my Sword Saga fantasy. I've always been interested in kind of David and Goliath kind of story, like a seemingly impossible odds of going up against a huge beast or force. And so I wanted to pit each of my main characters from Sword Saga against a giant. So this is the second story along those lines, and the story features my female warrior Zuri. So you can kind of think of her as a combination of like Storm, Wonder Woman, and like the Dora Milaje from Black Panther. So she's a badass. This story, I'm having her go up against like ogres. So very fantasy, very much along those lines. Tons of action. I'm a big action guy, so expect lots of spectacle.
Well, cool. And
we actually have some synopsises of the other stories as well.
Yeah.
Of the people that aren't here.
So for Andy Ducliffe, her story is called Live from the Apocalypse, and her synopsis is: a reporter and a photographer are left stranded in the California desert after a national meltdown leads to the collapse of modern society. Armed with outdated technology and an old news van, the duo capture the heartbreaking stories they come across while single-handedly trying to restore the airwaves. So that's Andy's story.
it's kind of appropriate because she's in the
Mm-hmm.
the news.
Yeah,
she's
and
got
news,
a lot of inside knowledge on that.
Yeah, they say write or draw what you know, and so this is something she knows. So
cool.
yeah. This one is draws. If you're a collector of cool, had your own spaceship, a cat for a sidekick, and were hated for being beautiful, you'd be space sass. Well, you're not, but you can read all about it. Bam, space sass. So luckily enough, Travis spoke with someone. They were gonna do a write-up on us, and so Travis just so happens to have everyone's the sales pitch, basically the elevator pitch.
That's cool.
So that kind of helped out.
See if I can find some of the others. There's
Tristan and
Dylan.
Dylan.
I think they put those in the main group chat, didn't they?
Yeah, actually. they did.
Tristan's is just a rad space story.
Yeah, he's
That's the only synopsis you get. Tristan is rad space.
yeah.
Apologies.
Yeah, you gotta try to find these.
Yeah.
We talk a lot.
I've seen a little bit of Tristan's stories. I didn't want to see all of them because I want to see all the stories in print. I've seen like little pieces of everyone, but I'm trying really hard not to read all the stories before the book goes out. And Tristan, he was done so fast. He's so fast and so good.
He's talented and motivated. So those things together equal awesome. So
yeah, I thought I was good at dividing my time and really like I'm a time management junkie, and he's better at it. He's like, okay, I got 15 minutes. Okay, I got to do this and this, and I think that also comes with doing what he does for a living, he has to put together a magazine every week. So he's like very deadline centric. So that's just he lives in a time where every minute literally counts. It's like, okay, I need this as fast as you can get this to me so I can create this thing. And so that actually helps with his output as an artist. So once we let him know, like, hey, you know, do you want to be in the group? You know, they want to be in this year's anthology. And he goes, I've had a story that I've been wanting to write and draw for years.
I saw him at it's like we go to the same Starbucks. That's how we met. And then the people at Starbucks knew we both drew, and then they introduced us. And then I saw his stuff, and I was like,
Shout out to you, Starbucks.
oh, okay. Like, wow. Yeah, you should be in the group, man. And then he joined the group, and then saw the anthology, and was like, oh, I got this story. And then I saw the progress every morning, and it was just like, this dude is going to be finished before all of us. He's the newest guy.
And he was.
So big props to him for being the new guy and being finished before everyone else.
Yeah.
Well, here's his story. Tristan Whitehouse is writing and drawing The Adventures of Tarek Zion. And his synopsis is, when a nearly undetectable alien species invades their sector of colonized space, a group of semi-outlaws find themselves dragged into intergalactic warfare. As if dealing with crippling debt, quarter-life crises weren't enough, these are the adventures of Tarek, Julie, Tiffany, Irina, and Torin.
Cool.
Yeah. And then for Dylan, his story is called A Tale of Rust.
A Tale of Rust.
A Tale of Rust. The kingdom has been invading the Republic for years. Every day brings the king closer to conquest over the senator. The senator's technology is powerful, but is no match for the king's magic. The senator decides he needs some magic in order to change the tide of this war, and he may have found the perfect guy, for the job to get him some. So Dylan's story is it's a one kingdom that has technology versus a kingdom that has magic, and so it's that technology versus magic kind of storyline.
Cool. Looking forward to reading all your stories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for backing the project.
Oh,
So I'm in charge of the Kickstarter, so I got to see who's coming in. So we appreciate
you're
all
welcome.
H
You're
being
very-
supporters
you're very
of
welcome.
the Accidental Aliens.
Absolutely.
And we are funded. We got there.
I was about to say.
It was five days we got there, which really surprised all of us. But if you still are interested in the project, you can still back. You just guarantee your copy because, like I said, we're there, and it guarantees.
Cool.
And then that allows us the more we get funded, the more we actually get to do. So, for instance, something that Kickstarter does, which is it's harder for us to gauge, is it includes the shipping into the total, which kind of throws us off because it's like, okay, if you for instance, the Kickstarter goal itself was for the printing. And then so I added a couple of hundred because I noticed last year. So like, for instance, let's say you back $15 and shipping's $3. They put $18 into your total. It's like, well, why'd you do that? Then why do you have why do you have the shipping separate? Like, it's weird. So so it messes with the front of it a bit, like, the goal. So we need to go over a bit more just to guarantee that we have enough to print all the Kickstarter rewards, the books, and mail them out. And then everything, I think our first stretch goal is at 5,500, and so that $1,000 in between, it'll actually give us some buffer room. It's like, okay, we'll be able to do all this stuff, and then plus we actually want to use some of the money that when we go over, we want to use it to get table space at conventions. So we would like to get a small press table at San Diego Comic-Con. So that's one of the stretch goals, is help us get a table at San Diego Comic-Con. And so
that's big for all of us, man. Like, I think, Scott, are you the only one who's tabled in the group, or in the Accidental Aliens?
We have another member. He's like a member. He hasn't been in the anthologies, but he's definitely part of like the group chats. But he lives in Temecula, so it's hard for him to actually make it to the group. But he's a fantastic artist. Death. What's Death's last name?
Phil Simone?
There you go. So,
Because you're tight.
Yeah. So he's actually tabled in Artist Alley at San Diego himself. So, but between us two, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's kind of like the big show, right? Everybody acknowledges San Diego Comic-Con as the con. So to get us as a group in San Diego Comic-Con, that's, for me, that would be awesome.
Huge.
I mean, that's huge, man.
Absolutely.
Like that. Put our mark on the industry.
Yeah.
That'd be
at
so
that
badass.
convention.
The first year I was in there, I was like, is this real life? Is this happening right now? Like,
But we've all tabled separately, and so it would be really great for us to table
table
together,
as
to really
as a company. Yeah.
to have the aliens have a presence there.
Yeah.
We've done some small events as a group. We did some for SoCal Comics and at Villainous Lair.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. But doing
138.
138
down Lemon Grove. That was in Lemon Grove.
and Kamikaze and Liberty Station. We've done.
Toy Wars up in Vista. We were, that was kind of the first year we were still forming. That was before the first anthology. So,
But to get a small press booth at San Diego Comic-Con, that would be, that's the goal, right? That's the goal.
yeah. And then we also want to do an upgraded cover like last year's, how we had that holographic cover. We want to do something. We want to, if we can do the exact same thing for this year's cover, that would be cool. So that's also part of the stretch goals. And I believe we're looking into tote bags and other stuff like that. So
Some pretty cool swag.
yes.
Yeah.
Out of this galaxy swag.
Out of this world. Out of this world, baby.
We'll be out of this world.
Now, maybe we can go into a little bit about. That was a pretty cool promo video you guys did on your Kickstarter.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Everybody, we were just throwing stuff at the wall. Like last year, we had our turtlenecks and the awkward family photo. Like that was our kind of like joke theme for last year's. And so we were kind of struggling to figure out what we were gonna do. We were gonna do something like 80s. That was one of our initial ideas, and then Dylan, one of our newest members, he threw the Clue thing out at us, and we're all, it sounds pretty cool actually. Let's just do that. And so it went really well. And I was like, I think it'll be good every year that we do something funny for our videos to make us seem different. Like I'll watch Kickstarter videos to get an idea of what people put up there and what they think like and I'll watch it and I'm like, that was a really good video, and it's like, man, there's a lot of production there. And I'll watch other videos that are not so much, and I'm like, Andy, working in the news industry, and she knows how to cut, like much like Tristan, she's used to working under a deadline, so she was able to cut that up real quick. And so like me and her, we got to coordinate on shots, like certain shots, and then she knew from her background when to zoom in and this and that, and so she made a terrific cut. And everybody did fantastic with their performance. Like everyone, it was kind of like
Unscripted, completely unscripted.
It was kind of, I gave a loose idea of how what I wanted to do, and I was just like, all right, and then you react and you say whatever. And then Rodney, I was like, I felt a little bad because I was like, Rodney, all right, can you say you're reading The Accidental Aliens, and then we're going to react to him, or we're going to react to you. And then he just did his super weird voice thing, and then he talked about reading in the garden. I was like, oh my gosh, he made this so much better. And everybody came with something. Like even the end of the video, Emily like winged that too. So it was kind of like everyone had rough ideas, and everyone was just like, just run with it, whatever comes out of your mouth. Let's see if it's funny, and everyone was funny.
Yeah,
and so that was great.
I think the thing for us is to have videos that reflect our personality as a group.
Yeah.
And as a group, we like to work hard, but we're lighthearted. I mean,
we're not the most serious.
We're not the most serious. Obviously, we're doing the podcast, many of us with drinks, with beers. So, that's who we are. Formally informal, right? Like trying to get some things done, trying to make some moves in this industry, but we don't take ourselves seriously. Yeah. We want people to take our work seriously, but
it's comics.
Yeah. Exactly.
You gotta have fun with it.
We're trying to, do childlike things for a living. You know what I mean? Like I've lived my life that I was, a pro wrestler for 10 years, and because I loved it as a kid. Now, ever since I was a kid, before that, I wanted to draw comics, and it's just like I still love the things that I loved as a child, and to be able to do childlike things for a living is amazing. So I think that our videos are definitely, like Rodney was saying, reflect our personalities.
It's gonna be hard to top this.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
We will try. We will try.
Now, what were some of the challenges that you faced, versus 2017 and 2018 that maybe you want to...
I actually say a lot of it went way smoother. So last year it was kind of me personally, this will be my 5th Kickstarter, and so last year's it was the first for a lot of people in the group, and so it was kind of me saying, all right, this is how it's going to go. We have to start off hot. You have to be, doing this. You have to contact everyone personally. Don't do group chats. Like, don't send out group texts. Nobody's going to back the project if they don't feel like you're trying to connect with them as a person. So it's really important for you to contact people and say, hey, I'm doing this thing or whatever. And if, there's something that you guys do, there's a connection there. Maybe you could, I don't know, like, hey, remember when we did this stuff? Well, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But this year, everyone, or mostly everyone in the group has done it now. And so everyone else is more prepared. And not to mention a lot of the stuff that we had done the previous year, I was able to bring over. I'm like, okay, well, we have to think of all of these different things, but most of it's already thought of, the format and this and that. And so a lot of it was easy just to move over. Mm-hmm. And then, okay.
I would say that, it's also easier because we put out a pretty good product last year, and we've got some local recognition now. We've been doing those shows that I mentioned earlier, and I think people are starting to get to notice and know that we bring a certain quality to our work, and they like that. I see a lot of professional work on Kickstarter, but I also see some stuff that looks like that it was put together pretty hastily. And I know there's also been some Kickstarters that they get the money and there's no product that's ever delivered. Mm-hmm. With ours, we're pretty much done. We're ready to go. And as soon as we got that money, boom, we're off to the printer. Mm-hmm. And I think last year people really learned about that reliability from us, and it makes it a lot easier to bring people back on board. They know what they're getting.
If people back your project once and they see that you can deliver on your product, they're more than likely going to back you again, especially if what you delivered was a good product. Mm-hmm. I've backed a few Kickstarters myself where I wasn't given the product for years, and I actually pimped the Kickstarter out. I was like, the art in this is beautiful. Just check it out. You're gonna love it. It looks great from what I've seen. It looks fantastic. You guys should back this project. And then I didn't get my book from them. I think it was 4 years. It took 4 years for them.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was really disappointed, and I actually had gotten 2 copies of it. They were like, it's done, we're sending it out. If you want an extra copy, you can PayPal us, $32. And like a sucker, it had already been 3.5 years at that point. And I still did it. I gave them more money because I wanted a copy for myself and I wanted a copy for my goddaughter. And they sent me 1 copy. And I was like, hey, I gave you guys money again. Where is the other copy? And they're like, well, we're taking care of the Kickstarter rewards first, and then we're going to send out the other copies. And I'm like, but that literally doesn't make any sense. You already have my money. Why would you waste more of the money that you got on mailing something twice? You couldn't have mailed 2 copies at once. It was going to cost the same rate, medium mail, and then plus I'm upset. And I'm like, so can you just return my money? Just refund me my money. Like, I don't even want the other book now. I don't want it. And so anyway, I'm going on about this Kickstarter project. So
he's heated.
I'm
man.
heated. I'm worked up. No, but so it left such a bad taste in my mouth that I wanted to make sure we were not that. And so the only time I'll ever do a Kickstarter is when the book's done. So it's like I won't even put the thing up until I'm done with my end. Like, it has to be drawn, and I know my colorist is reliable and this and that. And so for our group, it's the same thing. Like when the Kickstarter, the first one that we did, I said, hey, do you guys want to do this? for Free Comic Book Day, and we'll have all the way until March. We'll run the Kickstarter the whole month of March, and then get the books printed in April, and we'll have it by the 1st of May, so we can do Free Comic Book Day. And everyone was on board, and so that gave us a 10-month window to get our pages done. And so to have a nice amount of time to just do these short stories and put everything together, it's really important to make sure that process is done. So when people do back the book, we're like, hey, okay, cool. Thank you for the money. We will get this printed, and we'll have it to you in a month. So
I think to answer your question, for challenges though, I know just for me personally, like I wanted a story that at least matched the same quality of last year's story. And Emily was gracious enough to draw my story last year, but she wanted to do her own thing, and I wanted to find some artists that were just as comparable, and push myself as well to do something just as unique and as cool as last year's story, which is called "There's Something in the Green Flash." If you can back our Kickstarter and get last year's anthology as well if you're interested in reading that one.
Yep.
While supplies last. Yeah,
only 20 left, I think.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Out of a 500 print run.
500, yep.
So, get it while it lasts. But I just wanted to kind of maintain that same quality for me on a personal end. That was my biggest challenge.
Any challenges for you, Rodney?
For me, it's just trying to up my game from last year. So I'm a real big, like I said before, like I'm big into action. So topping the spectacles, it can be like anime, like Dragon Ball, like you get souped up for the big action scene, and then it's like a letdown because all they did was throw a fireball. It's like I waited 3-4 episodes for you just to throw a fireball. Like, okay, whatever.
Although Super seems pretty good.
That's what I hear.
It's all about GT. It's all about GT.
That's not even canon anymore.
Is it? This canon? This Dragon Ball? See,
they kicked it to the curb, man.
See, it's a whole nother podcast. Just trying to like push myself artistically is where I found the challenge. I like to stage action. I almost call it choreography on the page. Like if you were to have a camera on me in the studio, you would see me like doing poses and moves and pretending I was a epic warrior.
Making faces.
So maybe I'll film that one day and have everyone laugh at me. It's
like you're doing Tai Chi while you're drawing.
Yeah, so something along those lines. So basically, that's where I'm at. I'm trying to get the best action I can, trying to push those characters to the brink, push my artistic style as far as I can go. That's where I found the challenge this time out, is trying to top myself. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, as our audience knows, the Hall H show is all about celebrating, the independent creator. And I sort of want to go a little bit into your own personal why you do what you do. And I guess we'll start with Emily. What's your why for being a creator?
Oh, it makes me happy. I mean, I, like a lot of people, have been spending like the last several years of my life just like really trying to find what I really want to do versus what I have to do. A lot of us, all of us have day jobs that we use to back up our work. And it's just every time, like I get very sidetracked in my life, as we all do. I get sidetracked with jobs, I get sidetracked with relationships, but it always comes back to comics. That's always where I find my center, where I find where I'm the most like myself. And so I just, when I'm not creating, I'm not happy. Unless I'm creating.
Scott?
I love telling stories. I'm a storyteller, like just by nature. So, even with, Rodney was talking about like fight choreography and stuff like that. And like I did pro wrestling for 10 years. So, every match you're telling a story. And I always wanted whatever story I was telling to be better than the last story. And so with comics, it's pretty much the same. And I, growing up and reading books, it was like, I never wanted to draw. I was an X-Men kid growing up, and I didn't want to draw the X-Men though.
You weren't an Alpha Flight kid?
I always have a special place in
You
my
like
life.
Alpha Flight, eh?
Yeah.
You hoser?
Yeah. And then, Wolverine would pop in there time to time, so that didn't hurt.
Still waiting for that Alpha Flight cartoon.
Yeah, man, it's gonna happen. They have it in Canada already.
Do they?
Yeah, I loved reading other people's stories with their characters, but it was never, I want to draw the X-Men, or I want to draw Alpha Flight, I want to draw my characters, I want to tell my stories, and I want kids, young kids, like when I first started reading comics, I want their comics to be the second shift, and then I want them to grow up to tell their own stories. Or if they want to help me draw the second shift because I'm really slow, that would be cool. But that's always been something inside of me. Like, I want to tell these stories. I want to have a legacy beyond my years. Like, I want to tell these stories and I want people to enjoy them. And then years later, go, oh man, this is so good. This was a great story or whatever, and then maybe they'll want to continue the story, or maybe it'll just convince them to tell their own stories.
Cool. Travis?
I touched on it a little bit already before, but just giving a platform for people with limb differences or disabilities to see someone who looks like them, being a hero, being strong, showing that there isn't anything wrong with you. That's something that really gives me a purpose. And I remember we were doing an event with at SoCal, and afterwards the owner Jamie, he was kind of talking to us and asked us what's your guys' goals? Like, do you want to write for Marvel? Do you want to write like X-Men? Do you want to write Batman stories? And Scott, I think both you and I just said, we want to write our own thing. We just, that stuff's cool. And if you ever get a chance to do that, that'd be awesome. But I really just want to tell original stories with original characters. And because that I feel like gets my voice out there the most than it would be if I was writing Superman or something.
You're
like
not
that.
constrained in any kind of way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what I'm all about.
Rodney?
I guess for me it's kind of a two-parter. Artistically, I really, really, really love the human form, right? So I guess if I was giving my art statement, it's to display the human form in moments of stress and moments of power. So comics for me is the best way to do that, and telling stories. I like the idea of being a storyteller, because that's what we are as comic artists. We're telling stories. We have these worlds, these visions of different places in our heads. We see them so clearly, and we want to let everybody into these worlds. So that's very important to me, is to display this world that I have in my head to the world at large. And then jumping off of Travis, the whole thing with the way Black Panther hit, right? It's I didn't even expect how everybody has been overwhelmingly positive about it. I've been
hunger for it.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Black Panther for ages. And for a hot second, I was calling people, bandwagoners. I knew about Black Panther since I was little,
I liked Black Panther before it was cool.
Yeah, before it was cool.
Hipster.
But yeah, totally hipster. But the cultural relevance of it, kids being able to see a hero on the screen that looks more like themselves is important. It's and even I underestimated that. And it's not just kids that look the same as Black Panther. Having a little white kid or a Latino kid dressed as Black Panther is important because a lot of black kids are dressed as Peter Parker or dressed as Superman. It's celebrating diversity is the way I think we'll move forward as a society. So I just kind of wanted to have my story kind of hit just slightly like that, to have a fantasy story where you see someone who's not the typical character type, and I don't know, I just think that's important, and I really want to make my mark in the industry with that in mind. I at first debated, should I make this a thing that I highlight? Will it make people uncomfortable? And I was like, no, that's important to highlight that this is it's a black character, like, with a sword in a world of, magic and dragons and stuff. Like, why can't that be? There's no reason why. So, it's getting that message that anybody can be a hero. Stories come from all backgrounds. Everybody has a story to tell that's important and unique. So
cool. I feel the same way too. And a good friend of ours, Keith and Jones, just had his Black Comics Day. So that was an important event for us to sort of help him promote, because representation does matter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have a couple of Filipino characters in my book, The Second Shift.
Right.
It's something me and Rodney talk about all the time. We joke too. He goes, "Oh, we don't have enough representation at all." You don't have enough representation.
I'm rooting for y'all, man. I'm there. My money's ready for the next Asian hero. Man.
Yeah. So that's definitely piggybacking.
I mean, just going back to say
yeah.
Starship Troopers. I mean, Johnny Rico was Filipino.
Yeah.
He was, wasn't he?
Yeah, I read that book as a kid, man, and I remember seeing that movie.
Oh, man.
Like, that's not right.
There would be even very few Asian stars, let alone Filipino stars. Ernie Reyes Jr. was always huge, and so anytime he was on the screen, like me and my friends, we lost our minds. So having Filipino characters in comics, we have so many creators that are Filipino, but yet we have no characters. Like Bishop originally was supposed to be Filipino, but the mandate came down from the office. They're like, no, we want a black character instead. So Will had to change the ethnicity. So it's we almost had one.
Well, I know something that you and I talk about quite frequently is that we want to see original characters that are minorities. Now, and I don't want to take away anything from Falcon being Captain America, but like
Kamala Khan.
But I really want to see an original hero that has a limb difference or is in a wheelchair. Black Panther is a perfect example. It's T'Challa isn't Captain America. He's not carrying the shield. T'Challa is his own character with his own origin and his own thing. For me personally, I would rather see original characters that have those traits than grafting them onto an existing hero.
True. And I think it'll be easier for independent creators such as yourselves to do that rather than the big two.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is sad because they have the biggest range. You would think it would be easier for them. There were, there's always like Kamala Khan is a really important character. Her book's great. I love Miss Marvel, but it's a legacy character now, which is fine. But then there's like Miss America Chavez. Yeah, she was popular for a quick minute, and so to have a Latina superhero like in the mainstream, that's huge. It's great, and we do want to branch out and have diversity in comics with our comics, but I think that's a window that the big two need to focus on too, like original characters too, not just just turning other characters into legacy characters.
And it's just to sort of hammer that point, David Walker, he's written for Marvel, Luke Cage, and he said at a recent panel at Black Comics Day, he said that he's going to start going back toward independent creating, just because
that's great.
he said there's a disconnect between, the publishing side, Marvel Comics, and Marvel Studios. It seems like Marvel Studios is taking more of a taking on the challenge of sort of putting more the ethnic characters in there, versus the Marvel Comics part, which is they're sort of not really doing a good job.
Right.
What did you see what Eric Larson was tweeting out recently? And he said, it's a shame that Marvel can't come up with any kind of really original creations or characters in the last 10 or 20 years. Even we talked about Kamala Khan is a great character, but she is still a legacy character. You haven't seen any real original heroes out of them that have really just stuck.
Right.
So
I think there's also an excuse too that they use. They go, well, it's really hard to create new characters and to make those stick with. No, it's not. No, it's not.
I totally disagree.
That's an excuse. You can push a character into the forefront, and if it's a good character, it will stick. Like they're like, what new characters? And I'm like, well, Deadpool. Well, it's a bit older now, but Deadpool is he was a newer character that stuck with the audience because it was a good character. And so once you have a character that is good and you highlight that character, people will gravitate to that character. So it's a matter, like, they were pushing the Miss Marvel title for a while, and people were, this is good, we like this. And then so she gets pushed back a little bit, and they're doing their events and stuff. And then so the importance of the diversity isn't important so much because now it's about the event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's why, Image is like blowing up a lot too. It's not just like diversity of characters, diversity of stories that characters are into.
Absolutely.
Image is this renaissance of sci-fi. I'm loving it in comics. Like, I mean, because forever it was superheroes. That was it. That was the only comic type that was out there in American comics.
Mm-hmm.
But now we got so many great sci-fi stories.
Horror too.
And horror, horror is making a big comeback, and it's like that. Branching out that way will help the industry grow as a whole, because it's in flux right now. Like the comic, like the physical comic book medium is kind of in flux. So new ideas, new story types, diverse characters, all that will go into, I think, helping the industry grow. So yeah, it's one of those weird things. We talk about it all the time. Yeah. The state of the industry.
That's another great thing about having a group of comic artists and comic fans. You just BS about this type of stuff, and like, just like how things are working. Like I'm constantly having talks like about single issues, and everyone trade weights now, and a lot of people just, that's what they do. They read in trades. They're like, what, financially it doesn't make sense to be paying $4 for a single issue, and then the trade comes out at 15 to 20, and it's easier to find on the shelf. So like, I've even dabbled with the idea of not doing single issues, but as an independent creator, the problem is I'm slow, and I have, so like Emily said, we all have day jobs. Mm-hmm. So for me to put out 5 issues of the second shift will take me probably a year and a half, something like that, maybe 2 years. So it's like, I wouldn't have a new book for 2 years. Like so there's a give and take, like, well, this makes more sense to wait for the trade or to then over doing single issues. But at the same time, as an old school fan, I'm like, I don't want to not do single issues.
Right.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
And that's how you kind of build the audience for that trade. Mm-hmm. And I think we've all talked about doing more episodic stories with your single issue, and the way that like old school comics were.
Yes.
One and done.
Yeah, one and done story. You might have some character stories that carry over, but Spider-Man would fight the Sandman in one issue, and at the end of it, he would go on his date with Gwen Stacy or whatever, and that's it. And I think that is a good way for independent creators to kind of build that audience, because that way you're not intimidated by that, number 12 on the issue, like, oh, I don't have 1 through 11. That's okay. This is its own thing. It's its own adventure. You can jump in. Don't need to have all this previous knowledge.
Yeah, I started doing something with my issues because I found at shows, I remember the old Dark Horse model where they would put one of 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4 on the corner. And I was just like, yeah, but where is this in the story? And it's just like, well, it's its own story. You could just read this and be fine. And then I was like, oh, okay. But as a long time fan, I liked building that number. I liked seeing the high number. And so what I started doing is putting 1 shot or 1 of 2 or 2 of 2 like in the corner. So people see the 1 shot. If they're just a casual fan, they'll pick it up. And like Travis was saying, the episodics there, it helps. It's just one and done. You read it. Hey, that was good. And if you want to know more, then you can go back and read the other stuff. But you're not reliant on them knowing everything about your characters. So
you guys had touched on a little bit about having day jobs. I'm interested in hearing how you guys sort of balance out the creativity and your 9 to 5 or your day jobs. Emily.
Well, I try to work for startups because I love the chaos. But also it's a great environment to just to really balance your work. When I'm working with startups, I do a lot of product development, and so and I'm making labels and websites. So it's really good to take a break from that when I'm just stuck on what I'm doing, to go over and maybe letter my story or do some sketches, or so I can work a little bit on both throughout the day. But I try to work in day jobs where I remain creative. And so recently I had a job where I had to leave because my creativity was just gone. It was getting very, very corporate, which isn't bad per se, but it wasn't why I got into that job. So I left, and I got into something that was a little bit more hands off. I can work from home. I can work on my stories, and it is it's kind of hard to keep the balance, because for me art is like gravity. You can fly on an airplane, you can ride in a car, you can walk into a second story building, but eventually you have to make your way back to the ground, and that's where art is for me.
I treat my art career as my second job. So luckily I work 4 10-hour shifts, so I have Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off. But even after I leave my day job, I work 7 to 6. When I get home at 6:30, I eat, and then I draw for the rest of the night. So I really like to time manage. So it's okay, well, on these days I have X amount of time to draw. So Monday through Friday is my job for art as well. So I do pages. Monday through Friday, it's just pages. And then on the weekends, that's when I have time for the fun stuff. It's, these are my days off. I can draw whatever I want. I love drawing pages so much, though, that I end up drawing pages still. But yeah, so it's all about managing your time. And so for me, I really do like to treat it like it is my other job, because I would say I spend just as many hours drawing as I do working a day job.
Okay.
Well, I work, as I said before, I work in a preschool, and I'm lucky enough that I only work 5 to 6 hours at that job, and after that I can go to a coffee shop or come home and work on some writing, because it's really working 2 completely different muscles. It's not like I have to sit at a desk all day and then come home and sit at a desk and write. I'm during the day I'm up and running around and chasing those kids. So then sitting down is kind of a nice change of pace. And the way that I work is I usually will write a first draft in a notebook or a journal or something like that, and then transfer it onto the computer. So that way, once I'm on the computer, then it's kind of like a second draft. And then I start kind of cleaning it up, and then you can print it out, and then I work on a third draft. I'm a real draft purist in that way. Yeah, so that's a little bit how I work.
For me, I found the closer that I get my day job to being artistic endeavor, the better it works for my art. I used to run an art store. I used to be the store manager of an art store on a college campus in their art department. So that was a weird time for me, because kids would come in and teachers asking how to best complete their art project, right? So I'm helping other people finish their art, but it was still taking time away from mine. So at a certain point, I had to realize that, like, I can't give my time to anyone else's art anymore. I have to focus on mine. And so I decided to kind of jump from being on anything corporate and have all my time and energy be devoted to comic book art. So doing that, I had to make a lot of sacrifices. I don't drive anymore. For the first 3 years of me doing art full time, didn't have a TV. I was like, I can't focus on that type of thing. Just bought a TV, like, for my birthday. Yeah,
there you go.
So yeah, it's stuff like that I had to sacrifice for the art. But during that time, it was like going through the fire. I was like, man, like, I'm doing without, but my art, I felt inspired during that time, because that's what I had to rely on. And then, people started to notice that, and then I started to get, like, artistic opportunities coming towards me that would help monetarily. And now I actually I'm an art teacher at a few different schools around San Diego, and I teach specifically comic book art.
Oh,
so
cool.
that kind of, and that was something that just came about out of nowhere. That was definitely more like the universe kind of making a way for me. I'll definitely admit that. So,
which is super cool, by the way. Like I wish there were classes when we were growing up.
Oh, I'm jealous of them. I'm jealous of my students. Yeah.
I took a few lessons from you. I think I was probably one of your worst students.
You paid attention, so I miss you, man. So yeah, it was very, very fortunate. People started to know me in certain circles as a comic guy, and then those opportunities to teach the kids came about, and teaching has helped my art. I mean, I know all of us, we have things in our art that we do on automatic. Literally, it's just like, I throw this line down a certain way, I don't even have to think about it. But having to teach a student from scratch that meant that I had to have, like, more active control over what I do. Like, I had to know what I was doing and
why you're doing it.
Yeah, why I'm doing it. So that definitely, I didn't realize I would get something from them. I knew I was giving them something and they should be happy that I'm there. But then kind of humbled me again, knowing that I got that from them. I got a better degree of control on my art. So yeah, I feel like, trying to align yourself, what you do. I think that's how we all do it. Either you align what you do as your day job to your art, or you consider your day job as a support for your art. Both are extremely valid, and you have to put yourself in that mentality.
A lot of it's just discipline too. If you're hungry for this, if you have that story inside of you that you really want to tell, and you want to make it in this industry, you're gonna find the time. You're gonna make that a priority, and that's really on you to figure out what the best way is to do that for yourself.
Yeah.
Cool. I got one more question before we get to the Thunder Round.
Ooh, are we gonna be Thunder Buddies?
What piece of advice do you have for aspiring creatives who want to go the independent creator route that you guys have gone on?
Do the work. Actually sit there and do the work, Don't say you want to make comics and then not make comics. No one's stopping you from making comics except for yourself. So if it's something you actually want to do it. Make your own books. I mean, if you don't have the money and you start learning different aspects of creating comics. Like, for instance, when I started, I just knew how to draw comics. And then I realized that I didn't want to rely on inker, so I had to learn how to ink myself. And then to save money, I didn't hire someone to do the color flats. I learned how to color flat on YouTube. And so it's just learning other parts of the process and getting in there, doing the work, and that's what you have to do. I learned how to letter off of YouTube. You know, YouTube is your friend. So if you don't know how to do something, you can figure it out there. But yeah, just if you want to make comics, make comics.
I think for me, the best piece of advice I ever heard was the only thing better than perfect is finished. You can have you can have this sprawling 100 issue epic in your head that you've stewed on for the last 10, 15 years, but the worst story you've ever read, it's better than that story in your head because it's actually out there and it's actually done. So let's say Twilight is better than that story you have in your head because she did it. She did the work and she put it out there and it's completed. So stop fussing over whether or not it's perfect. Stop fussing over whether or not everyone's gonna love it. Sit there, make it, and then learn from those mistakes.
Absolutely.
Read it and look at what you don't like and then fix it next time.
Yeah, the question I get a lot from my students is like, how do you get better at drawing? And I have to tell them, by drawing. Like I'm not being facetious or giving an attitude. This is the reality of it. The only way to get better at drawing is to draw all the time, every day. A lot of times artists focus on the lofty ideals and the expression that they're trying to convey, but there's a physical component to it. You have to physically learn how to draw, and that feeling of drawing 5 hours, then 8 hours, then 10 hours plus. You have to get used to it. There's no other way. If there's so much time in a day, a day is 24 hours. You work. Most people work an 8-hour shift at the most. You push it maybe to 10. You still got some time. You can take a break. You could even get a nap in that. But after that, put some lines down. There's almost no excuse for not drawing every day, even 30 minutes. You know what I mean? If you drew 30 minutes that day, it'd be better if you didn't draw 30 minutes at all. Because I hear it a lot from the kids, and it's like, I don't know, how do I find the time? Steal the time. I'm not encouraging this, but I know when I was in school, I was doodling in my notes all the time.
Yeah.
That sounds like encouragement.
No, it's not. It's not. But yeah, it's still the time when you're not having to do, having to work, having to do things that life requires. There's time. The time management. It's big. It's a struggle for most artists. Right? Is time management, I think. But yeah, just draw as much as you can. You should be drawing every day if you want to take it to that professional level. Draw every single day, and then you get into this zone where it's like you feel bad when you don't draw. That's how you've gotten there at a point to where you can get on a professional or career level, is when you feel bad when you don't do your art. So
another thing I'd say is people. I mean, surround yourself with people that challenge you and inspire you. I mean, that's the whole reason that we created this group, was because when we all met, we all at our tables were talking about our struggles and how difficult it is to find balance in the industry. And so when we all came together, we very much strengthened each other. I've never improved more in my work than I have being with these guys and learning from them and getting together with them every week and saying hey, I'm having trouble with this. Can you help me? Hey, I want to look at that. That looks awesome. Here's some pointers. And just it really keeps you in a creative space. And for those who find themselves veering off on tangents in their life, it's a really good center point.
Yeah, brings you back in.
And we're building a little community here. I think somebody mentioned earlier that art, creating art or writing or comics or whatever, it's a very lonely endeavor, and the more support and the more people who are on the same journey with you, the easier it's going to be. So yeah, build your own community.
Yeah. One of the guys that, when the year I met Emily, or I started talking to Emily, he moved away, and he actually started his own art group where he lives now. And I was pimping out the Kickstarter, and this guy, I met him through the conventions. He does his own book, Ted Chimburis. He does, he's Afro Stash Studios. And so he donated to the project, and he goes, "Hey man, I just wanted to ask, like, how did you get connected with the group like that? Like, it's pretty cool that you guys are, doing your own project, your short story and the anthology." And I was like, "Oh, we created it. Like, we just, we met at conventions and decided that to draw together is better than drawing alone all the time." And so through that, we decided to, create a book and make something, put something out there for everybody to see. And, giving a very long deadline helps, like when you do have a day job and stuff, it's like, okay, well, we got some time to figure this out. And it really gives people time to think about their story and how they want to go about it. And like Emily said, drawing together is definitely better.
Mm-hmm. And I think the one last thing that I'll say is, there's more than just Marvel and DC and Image to tell your story. If you want to tell a comic story, just tell a comic story. Mm-hmm. You might have the best Superman story in your head, but just write it out and call it Super Guy or whatever, and tell that same story in your own way. Like, tell a story that people read and go like, "Oh man, this is so good. I wish like DC would tell this story." You don't have to wait for them. They don't need to recognize you for you to make comics. Mm-hmm. If you're a writer, find an artist. If you're an artist, find a writer, or learn how to write and just do it. If you want to make comics, make comics. This industry is so small that as soon as you put a comic out there for people to see, you're in the industry and people will see it.
You don't even have to print it. You could do digital. A lot of people read digitally. There's a lot of websites. There's a website that's strictly for digital comics, and you can create your own comics and put them there, and then people, I think they could follow your book. I don't. One of my friends that does digital books, he was telling me about it. So that's another way to go too. If you want to save, money, like instead of printing books, you could just go the digital route.
Cool. All right. Here we go. The Thunder Round.
Okay, Thunder Round. All right.
Some off-beaten path questions.
Okay.
Okay, first one. What's one thing that your fans would be surprised to know about you?
Emily.
Starting with me?
Yeah.
Well, the working with kids thing is probably it.
Yeah.
Every time I mention that, it's like a past life for me because it was quite a while ago. People are like, "Wow, you worked with kids? Were you like really bad at it?" And I say, "No, I was actually pretty good. I just changed a lot since then."
Probably that I was a pro wrestler. If they didn't already know me from pro wrestling, so people that have met me at conventions and like my art and follow me through my art, that's pretty big one.
Actually, same answer as Emily. We actually met the first time that Emily and I met. We were working with the school district and working with kids, and as these guys know, I have such a off-color sense of humor that you wouldn't think that I work with kids, but I do, and
You're able to control your jokes.
Yeah, yeah, I can actually kind of keep it cool for 6 hours a day.
I think for me that there was a time back in art school that I actually considered being a professional dancer. I'm a b-boy. If you check out my Instagram, every now and then you'll see my dance videos. But I actually thought about doing it professionally. Then I got an injury in a competition, and that was not an option anymore. So for a time, I wanted to be a pro dancer. So.
Nice.
All right. Okay, what is one of your favorite movie soundtracks? We'll start with. We'll go backwards.
Okay. I didn't want to go first on that one. Favorite movie soundtracks. I mean, the Star Wars soundtrack. Sorry, man. Sorry. It's just iconic. It's like that music. as soon as it starts, for the main ones, that the anthologies, they do different stuff. But yeah, like Star Wars, John Williams, right? Yeah. It's just, it gives me it makes me a kid again when I hear it. So yeah.
I'm gonna go the Batman Forever soundtrack, man. I love me some Seal, Kiss from a Rose, Little Mazzy Star.
Yeah.
That one was on repeat when I was a kid.
Good stuff.
Is it real?
For real.
Okay. When I was a bit younger, the Wedding Singer soundtrack. I love the Wedding Singer soundtrack.
Okay.
And then more current, the Guardian soundtrack. So the Guardians 1.
Mm-hmm.
So those I could listen to over and over again.
For me, the Prince of Egypt soundtrack. That movie had a big impact on me, and I have severe ADHD. It's very difficult for me to like focus on work, but as soon as I put that soundtrack on, I'm in the zone. I can listen to it 5 times in a row.
The Gyllenhaal one?
What?
Prince of Egypt? The Gyllenhaal one?
That's Prince of Persia. Oh my god.
I haven't seen either.
I thought that was the same movie.
All right, this question goes to the theme of your group's name. In a world of pop culture, comic books, and sci-fi, who's your favorite alien and why?
I mean, I'm gonna go first if nobody.
Go for it.
Yeah,
The Xenomorph.
Oh yeah.
Alien, man.
Yeah, those are rad.
That is the first 2 Alien movies are my favorite sci-fi and favorite horror movies. And that creature, God, I had so many nightmares beforehand. Before I like got a little older. Yeah, Xenomorph, the design, Geiger's design. Yeah, it's haunting and crazy and powerful, and yeah, those movies. So yeah, the Xenomorph, favorite alien. Chestbuster.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Superman. Got the cape. He's truth, justice, American way. Yeah.
Along those lines, I'd go Martian Manhunter. For me, I was never a huge DC fan, but from what I read, I always just loved how grounded he was and how much he brought everyone to this like gravitational point. And so Martian Manhunter was always like, yeah, you tell him. You get those kids in line.
Oh man, the Xenomorph's pretty good. The Neomorph's pretty cool too from Covenant.
He was scary.
The creepy white one.
Yeah, he was scary.
I like the creature. I don't know if it's considered an alien. It's from Hellboy, from the Hellboy movies. There was that thing with that had the wings and then the eyes on the hands, like those.
Oh man.
Yeah, like the Guillermo del Toro. Like he has some really nice creatures. So anything that guy's putting out, it's different. Like horror creatures, the Xenomorph that's probably the win. But yeah, just whatever type of creature. I like Guillermo del Toro's stuff.
Cool. All right, next question. If you could have dinner with anyone dead or alive, who would it be and where would you eat at?
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Okay, let's see.
Someone else take this.
Anyone go
For me,
first.
I'd say Jim Henson. Jim Henson has always been a hero of mine. I always loved his creative spirit, and I just, when he died, I was a kid. I don't even think I knew about it right away because we didn't have a whole lot of TV channels. But just looking back on his life and the struggles he went through, and just like having a huge body of his work to look at, like God, I would just love to sit down with him for hours and talk about the creative process and just like physically building things.
Did you say dead or alive?
Yeah, dead or alive.
Oh, okay.
Or where would you have dinner with Jim Henson?
Where
would you
dinner
go?
at?
Yeah,
Oh, gee.
Where would you eat?
Let's see. That's probably say Mexican food.
What's
Seems
your
like
favorite one here in San Diego?
Oh God, that's hard. There's a chain called Los Primos that I really like, but there's a place that's always sticks in my heart in Poway. It's a yellow brick building. It used to be called Iberto's for years and years, and now it's called Oscar's. Food tastes the same though, and it's 24 hours. You can go get carne asada fries at 3 a.m. and
You wouldn't get frog legs with him?
For some bacon.
Anybody else want? I
You can
got
go
mine.
first.
I
Yeah,
got
go
mine. Okay, so you know what? I would want to go to In-N-Out with Stan the Man Lee.
Oh, yeah.
Just pick his brain about those iconic characters that he made, especially. And I know, yeah, I speak about diversity a lot, but this dude created Black Panther and the X-Men in the 60s. Like, I mean, that's just so ahead of his time, right? Like he was making a statement with those characters, like about representation, about diversity, and it's just like how, why, like what made you want to take those leaps that other writers were not doing back then? They what made you want to buck against the status quo back then? And I'm paying for your double. Don't worry. This is on me, Stan. This is on me, man.
He's got that Spider-Man money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah. You can say you bought dinner.
That's
for
right.
him.
That's it. I
pretty
can
cool.
say that I bought Stan.
That's pretty cool.
Do you think he orders his burgers animal style or not?
He goes off the secret menu.
Yes, he does.
Is there a spider style?
Right, to make a style right for you.
For me, there's a restaurant in North County called Stir Fresh. It's a Mongolian barbecue. I love that place. And I would go with Brian K. Vaughan because he is my favorite. Maybe definitely my favorite comics writer. Maybe my favorite writer of all time. Reading Why the Last Man just transformed in my mind what a comic could be, and just everything he writes is so good. His characters and his dialogue all feels so crisp and so real. Right now Saga and Paper Girls are my two favorite books on the stands right now, so definitely get together with that guy and just talk to him about storytelling.
I would I don't know, I have some options. Andre the Giant seems like he would be really cool to go to dinner with. I heard he drinks a gallon of beer. He needs to drink a gallon of beer to get drunk, and he loves.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And like I would just love to hear him talk, and I don't know what he would talk about, but I would be interested in hearing it.
Does anybody want a peanut?
Yeah, he would talk about peanuts. I heard he really loved Italian food, so he always used to like to go to Italian restaurants. So wherever the boss wanted to go, I guess we'd go Italian. Creator wise, I love Bret Hart and Bruce Lee, but I don't know how those conversations would go, or Kobe Bryant. Like I think Kobe I might have better conversation with, but those are kind of like my inspirational people throughout history that like those three guys like, but I don't know what those conversations would be like. So, like Kobe, I feel like we could do a little bit of philosophy, but he's into art. He's into storytelling, so that's really cool. Like comic creators, Robert Kirkman from every podcast and interview I've listened to, he's hilarious. So if I just wanted to have a good laugh, I'd probably have dinner with Robert Kirkman. And he seems like a burrito guy or a burger guy. But art-wise, I would definitely have it with Jim Lee. I'd just sit there and talk to him about comics and art and drawing. And so I totally just... I just did about 7 people.
Yeah. We all got one, Scott.
Yeah,
Come
yeah.
on, man.
Well, that's why I went last.
What brewery would you take Andre the Giant to?
Oh, I would take... Oh, that's good. I wonder... because back then there wasn't craft beer, so I don't even know what kind of beer he drank. So San Diego local brewery, maybe Ballast Point.
Gotta get that Belching Beaver with him, man.
Oh yeah, Belching Beaver, yeah. But yeah.
He'd have fun with that. He'd have fun.
Yeah.
Trying out craft beer.
That was the first person that popped in my head was Andre the Giant, and he's not like that's. I don't know. That's not someone I spend a lot of time thinking about. But I was like, that guy seems like it'd be cool to talk to.
All right, next question. What's one comic book they would give as a gift to someone?
Saga.
Yeah. Man.
Saga. Yeah.
I've given Saga to people. I've given Why the Last Man to people. Ultimate Spider-Man is another one where it's like people have said, "Oh man, I'm so sick of Marvel and what they're doing and everything they've done with Peter, and I just give them that original Bendis and Bagley book, and like, here, it's self-contained, it's a lot of fun, and yeah.
Thor, God of Thunder, Jason Aaron's run.
Yeah.
The God Bomb story was really good.
Oh, God Bomb.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I give, if people want superheroes, but kind of like superhero adjacent, because it's not typical superhero stuff. It's like God stuff.
Yeah.
And but it's still Thor. So it's just like, I'll tell them that. Saga, yeah.
I do. It depends on the person. If they're like a non-comic reader, Saga is definitely one to give for non-comic readers, and it gets them in. It's like, oh, this is crazy. Or for comic, or another one for non-comic readers. I found they like Kingdom Come, because it's painted, right? They're not used to seeing a painted comic and like, wow, this is epic. But I guess my last one would probably be like Miss Marvel. Just fun.
Yeah.
She's a fun character. She's just so fun. So
I like to give people like completed stories. One thing that I gave out a lot back in 2010 was when it was first new, Doug TenNapel's Ghostopolis really like struck me as just a really special story. And I was working with kids at the time, and I picked up like 3 copies, and I took it to my kids group, and we all just took turns reading it during homework hour because it was so good.
Cool. And March, you like to have
Yeah,
people.
March.
Oh yeah, that's right. We have kind of like a little library going on between us, and every time someone gives me back March, I'm like, okay, who's reading it next?
Civil War is one that I've given out to quite a few people before the Captain America movie came out, and everyone, whether they were a comic fan or not, they really seemed to get something out of it.
A story I really like that was hit and miss was We 3. Have you ever read We 3?
Oh, I've been trying to track it down,
Oh,
actually.
I have it. I'll let you borrow it. But it's really good.
You'll give it to me as a
you
gift.
heard it on podcast. It's going to Travis.
Yeah, that's really good. But it's like, because it has to do with animals and stuff. So I gave it to a couple of my friends that love animals and comics. Yeah, they did not like it.
That's the one with the mech cat and the mech dog.
The mech animals,
Yeah.
the rabbit.
That's a
Yeah.
It's really good.
You gotta let them know.
That's what
It can get heavy. So,
I'm an animal guy, so
Yeah. I loved
but
it. I loved it.
It's a good story.
I feel like if I can get through Pride of Baghdad, I could probably get through that.
Oh, yeah.
All right. See, you are leading a trip to Mars. What 4 other people would you bring with you?
Real or fictional?
Yeah.
Yeah, can it be fictional?
Like,
It's up to you.
okay. Cool. Oh,
Matt
man.
Damon, so you could like poke him and say like, hey, do the thing.
Say hello to your mother for me, okay?
Let's see. I would bring. I'm gonna keep it fictional. I'd bring Tony Stark. I would bring. Let's see. Who else? Shuri. Yeah, I'm gonna bring all the.
there you
Yeah,
go.
thanks. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna bring all the smart people. Shuri.
Make it too fictional, too real.
Too fictional, too real?
Too
Okay.
fictional, too real. My real people. I bring my brother, right? My little brother. He's Eric. He's awesome. He's my biggest fan, and yeah, I think he would want to come to space with me. Yeah, so
That'd be cool.
Eric, and then let's see, man, what would be my 3rd real person? This is tough. I don't know that 3rd person. Can I bring my cat? Are cats able to go in space?
You're not gonna bring the girlfriend?
See, you guys
Just
are
say
getting me in
yes.
trouble.
Just say
Yes,
yes.
yes, I am.
I was gonna leave it alone.
Yes. People trapped in closed spaces with limited oxygen. The heart grows fonder.
Distance.
It's
right?
a trip, but it's not a
Yeah.
forever
Right?
trip.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, is this like to live forever? Like what is? Or is it just like?
You're just going to Mars.
You
And
just
then
go to
come in-
Mars.
Yeah.
It's like a bus
Okay.
ride.
Oh, like a
come back.
vacation.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, I was like, well, I have to have poison ivy there because she can create plant life and stuff.
Nice.
And then so we'll never run out of oxygen. And then I got to bring my mom because she cooks. She's like the best cook. So okay. So now it's just a vacation. So now my people are changing. Go ahead. Someone else go then.
Let's see. I'll bring Doc Brown in case anything goes wrong with the ship. Anything wrong with the 1.21 gigawatts? Ripley.
That's smart, man.
Ripley, in case we come across anything scary.
Yeah.
I'd bring Obama to lead the expedition. I think he'd be a good
Oh man. If you
expedition
If
leader.
you encounter an intelligent species, just
Yeah.
let Obama talk.
And then my other real one, gosh, I don't know. I'm gonna be boring and stick with Brian K. Vaughan again, just so he could tell me some stories on the way out there, so I don't get bored.
I'd probably bring, fictionally, I'd bring Storm and Jean Grey just so they can, like, totally OP my trip. Nothing will go wrong.
Yeah.
And then I'd bring my dog, because he's a person. And probably Elon Musk, so he could just, like, talk my ear off about Mars.
Nice. Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of. Whoa, see? Oh, that opened it up. I'm like, could bring like Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, what? Yeah.
Say some stuff. I think I would bring Jim Lee and Robert Kirkman. I'll stick with that. And then fictional. I'll just bring one fictional person. Or does it have to be two?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'll bring 20 like to dinner. Yeah, and maybe the Poison Ivy for the oxygen thing. Plus, she's a feisty redhead. That seems like fun. Seems like fun on a vacation.
Okay, last underground question. It's 2 a.m. at the karaoke joint.
Okay.
You get
Red
to have
Wing?
the last song. What do you sing and why?
Oh,
Did you
we
pick that
we
particular song?
We
do
know this.
that. Yeah.
Also, my go-to is "Shout" by the Isley Brothers. I do a pretty good rendition. It's always a crowd pleaser. You get everybody on their feet, and they always go a little bit lower now, a little bit lower now, and a little bit louder now. So that's mine.
Yeah. I usually do Weezer, "Say It Ain't So." Everyone knows that song, so people like to sing along. And then I get into it because I know the song so well. And so yeah, that's usually my go-to.
Yeah, I'm no fun at karaoke.
Neither am I. I like to watch these two in karaoke.
Yeah, it's fun. Andy sings Rammstein. Yeah, she sings German songs at a karaoke bar, German metal. So that's always good.
We should do that when the book gets out as our celebration.
Oh yeah, and then we'll shout it out. Oh yeah, just so you know, hey, that'd be cool. I like it.
Yeah, I can't think of a song.
What's your favorite song to sing in the shower?
Favorite song to sing in the shower. Anything from Outkast.
There you go.
Especially AT Aliens.
There you go.
Yeah. So.
Oh, perfect. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes. Yes. Anything from AT Aliens.
My favorite song to sing in the shower, Dirty Deeds, AC/DC.
Okay, so there you go. Good karaoke song.
But I would never sing it in public because I cannot do that.
I like to sing the Wonder Years in the shower. The Wonder Years song.
My friends.
That's pretty good. Okay. Obviously, we can't do things by ourselves. So I'll give you this opportunity to do some superhero shout-outs to people you want to sort of say thank you to.
Thank you to everyone in the Accidental Aliens for being my friends and hanging out and not, condemning me to drawing art by myself in my room, in my home office. And then all of the people that have supported the Kickstarter, all of the Kickstarters, like I've said previously, I've run 5 and all have been successful. So everyone that supported me throughout the years doing these projects, and yeah, just appreciate the support.
Definitely want to give a shout out to our backers for Kickstarter. People are feeling us. Like it's overwhelming a little bit. Also, family definitely. They're always in my corner, especially my little brother Eric. He's all in on seeing his big brother be a comic book artist. So that's what's up. And then my girlfriend Bia, she's wanting me to succeed. She wants me to make it, and I really appreciate her and love her for it. So yeah.
Anybody who has bought a comic of mine, anybody who's or the anthology or Cherub, Thank you. I appreciate it. I couldn't do it without you. My mom and my dad, especially my mom, who's really given me a lot of support over the years, and my sister, who she's always supported what I do, even though she doesn't quite understand it. She doesn't quite understand comics, but she's always helped me out. And I got a really good friend named Sarah, who's always helped me out. So those are my shout outs.
I'd really like to thank the people at Comic Fest for just supporting local artists and really treating us the way that we felt we weren't being treated by larger cons. They really wanted to take it down to basics and bring in good, talented people, and give them the chance to prove their worth and to prove that they can show up and be at their tables and be pros. And they're what started this whole thing. Without Comic Fest, we wouldn't be a group. And of course, shout out to all of our backers. And these guys are my support system. Everyone in the Aliens has just really rocketed me forward in what I want to do.
No.
Oh, and lastly, Villainous Lair.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, they were our home base for the last couple of years. It was such a great community. The owners, all of the workers, the staff, Chris, Rob, Josh. They would see us every week. They knew us all by name. They welcomed us in. They would always support our projects. They always pick up Second Shift, Cherub, Accidental Aliens, whatever book we had. They would pick them up and sell them in the store and highlight them. And they actually would have us on Free Comic Book Day, Art on Adams, Small Business Day, stuff like that. Any of those, they supported us and they were there. So we're really bummed that they're gone, but it will always be our first home. And so yeah, shout out to those guys.
Mm-hmm. And to anyone who supports local shops.
Yeah.
Before hopping on the easy choice online, for people who just really want to support their local shops and their local artists.
Cool. I guess we'll start wrapping up the show. But before we do that, you want to go ahead and sort of rep your personal projects and where people can find you online? Emily.
Oh yeah, my Instagram handle is Color by Emmy. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, it's all Color by Emmy, and it's all the same posts. So Instagram is really my favorite place to post. And that's where you'll see just all my updates and lots of pictures of my dog, and and this month just lots of updates about the Kickstarter.
Your website.
Oh yeah, my website is colorbyemmy.com.
And my stuff is at Scott Lost, SCOTTLOST, on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/Scott Lost. The website is accidentalaliens.com. You can pick up our anthology there, limited, and the Second Shift, which is my main story, my serial that I'm doing. And The Wanderers, of course, is in the Aliens anthology. And so yeah, those are the couple of projects I'm doing. And you could find the most recent issue that I just finished of the Second Shift, issue 7. You could hit me up if you're into that.
My Twitter and Instagram are at Rivas Travis, RIVAS Travis. Website is accidentalaliens.com. There you'll find a link to my Etsy store, so you can pick up the 0 and the first issue of Unstoppable Cherub, or you can just go to Etsy and search Unstoppable Cherub, and that's me.
You can find me at Pen Paper Flavor on Instagram, and have our page on Facebook. I also have a Patreon, so patreon.com/penpaperflavor. And in the coming months, it's going to be mostly Sword Saga. It's time for the world to see that story.
Yeah, it is.
So coming very, very soon. Again, thanks for everyone's support on that. Yeah. So.
Well, on behalf of my co-host Alex Benedicto, I want to thank all of you for coming on the Holly Show podcast. I really appreciate it. And is there anything else that you would like our audience to know about?
We got 20 days left, or well, I don't know when this is going up, but March No, April 1st at noon. That's the last day. So at noon it stops. So if you guys want to back the project, go to any of our sites, our social media, and the link is there. You could go to Kickstarter.com and search 2018 Accidental Aliens, and it should pop up.
And thank you guys. Thanks for giving us a platform to be able to talk about this and showcasing local independent artists and talent. That's really important for us to get our word out there, and we couldn't do it without the help of you guys and local shops and Comic Fest and anybody who is giving a chance to independent creators.
Cool. Thank you. And that's the show, everybody. Peace, cheers, and talk to you later.
Thanks.
Woo!
Cool.
Nice.